Hello, and welcome to the Emerge Leadership Connection, where we connect you with the ideas and concepts to unlock legendary leadership so you can emerge and become who you are meant to be. I'm your host, Cody Dakota, and on this terrific Tuesday, I will be your leadership coach, teacher, and mentor. On today's extremely special episode, we will talk about Stan Lee's thoughts on purpose, strengths, value, and limiting beliefs. Our Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday episodes typically cost supporters $5 a month, which all $5 goes towards various causes that we're supporting right now, including neurodiversity, values-based strength, scientific research, homelessness, and more areas that we're looking to impact going into the future. But yesterday, something big kind of happened within the comic world. As many of you guys know, Stan Lee has died at the age of 95. And it is a huge impact on a lot of people. Stan Lee represented a lot to many people. And I wanted to put this episode out from behind the paywall as a tribute to the man who inspired so many people. If you want to learn more about what we support outside of this episode, please go to www.emergeleadership.club to check out what we do. Now, if this is your first time listening to the Emerge Leadership Connection, you can feel free, if you'd like to, stop and go back to episode 0. These episodes are designed in a very specific way to help you emerge and become who you were meant to be. And if you want to understand the theory behind how each of these episodes are designed, then episode 0 is the place you're going to want to go to understand the full benefits that you can get from this episode. But if you just want to stick around to hear about what Stan Lee represented and what he contributed to the world, feel free to just stay tuned. Before we start the episode in full, I'd like to thank our supporters who allow us to continue to bring value to you, while also allowing us to support the amazing causes that I mentioned before, which are geared towards improving future generations. I told you how you can check that out if you'd like. And also, while you go to the website, I currently have a book that is in the running for the Extraordinary Award for coaches with ideas that can change people, businesses, and the future for the better. If you'd like to check that out, go to www.emergeleadership.club, click on the tab for books. And now, onto the show. Today's words of wisdom come from Stan Lee, who said, "I used to be embarrassed because I was just a comic book writer while other people were building bridges or going on to medical careers. And then I began to realize entertainment is one of the most important things in people's lives. Without it, they might go off the deep end. I feel that if you're able to entertain people, you're doing a good thing." Now, Stan Lee, he was one of the main writers, one of the main creators, one of the people who really drove Marvel into the success that it's become today. He did so much with everything there. And he created a lot of amazing characters, a lot of amazing stories that have inspired generations of people, which have inspired me. And it was always a treasure to see Stan Lee in every single one of the Marvel movies in a cameo appearance, It was one of those special Easter eggs where you would watch and all of a sudden see him and know that this was someone who wanted to bring joy into people's lives, who wanted to create heroes that people could actually look up to. He was actually one of the people who began the trends of bringing reality into superheroes. A lot of superheroes before Marvel Comics, they were characters who acted against villains, but they were essentially perfect people. And they didn't really have any major troubles that happened except with whatever happened within that specific comic. And Stan Lee kind of changed that stereotype. He created heroes with addictions. He created heroes who were trying to prove themselves to others. He created heroes that had true faults. And it was what allowed superheroes to change from being this ubermensch kind of better than anyone could ever hope to be into real people who we can connect with and who have challenges that we're also facing. It made it so alive for so many people. And as you can see today, Marvel has such a huge cult following. You have people who debate who the best Marvel hero is, and people who debate which Marvel movie is the best movie, and people who would stand outside for days to get memorabilia related to their favorite heroes. And the question becomes, how does a man create such a huge legacy like that? And Stan Lee truly did some amazing things in his life. Just some quick things I'd like to touch on that I think are really, really neat. Stan Lee participated in World War II, but he wasn't out on the battlefield like you would typically hear about. He was actually one of the very few people ever in the military to have the title of playwright. He actually helped create training videos and created comics and wrote material and propaganda for the U.S. military during World War II. And what's really cool about that is that most people went into the war and really had to figure out how they could fit in and add value. Whereas Stan Lee was someone who understood what his value was going into the war, and he brought that as something to add to the military and its power, really, in a really unconventional way. And it kind of goes back into what his quote is saying. He used to be embarrassed because he was just a comic book writer, right? But then he began to realize what his own value was. He started to discover what his purpose was and how he could actually impact other people, how he could use his strengths to add value to other people. It's really amazing. And he did that within the military, which is the most unlikely place most people would think of a comic book writer to go into and have a great impact. And yet that's what he did. When you know what your purpose is and you know what your strengths are, you know what type of value you can bring, you can really create your own path in the world. And that's something that Stan Lee did. The other thing that I think is really interesting with Stan Lee is during the writing process in a lot of the Marvel comics that he was heavily involved in during the actual writing portion of his career. He didn't actually fully write the comics. He did some really interesting things with his team. He would basically have portions that he specifically worked on, and then he had different people within the different teams who worked on very specific other portions of the comics that he didn't touch at all. He only looked at it and gave approval. And this is actually something extremely important in leadership. It's recognizing what are the things that you are actually talented at, and what are the things that other people are actually talented at, and then giving them the reins to do what it is that they're really good at. What are their strengths that make them fantastic versus what are your strengths that make you good? And he really understood that, and that's a huge part of what led Marvel Comics to having such great successes. Is he didn't try and force himself to become good at things he wasn't good at. He simply figured out who was good at what and allowed everyone to flourish in their strengths. I would call this creating a leadership team, because we all have different purposes, we all have different strengths, we all have different values. And when we recognize those and combine our strengths, our values, with other people's strengths and their values, and we do this under the same purpose, you each are leading a certain part of the project, and that project becomes exponentially better than any one person could have done on their own. And Stan Lee did this to great effect, so great effect that that people are truly mourning his death today. Now, going back into the quote here, there is another piece that is really interesting that I want to dive into. He begins it with saying, "I used to be embarrassed because I was just a comic book writer." This whole concept has to do with limiting beliefs. It is something that we all face. We all look at what it is we do in the world, and then we look at someone else that we perceive as better than us, and we compare ourselves to them. We say, wow, what is it? I mean, am I doing anything really important? Is what I do worth it? Look at Johnny Joe and Susie Sue, and they're so much better than I am. But that's typically not true. Some of the most powerful people in an organization have some of the jobs that most people would never want to have. And there's actually major power in becoming really good at those jobs. Such as customer service. Customer service is typically seen as a part of an organization that no one really wants to be a part of. But look at the people who truly become the best in customer service. They're wanted at every single company because they know how to interact with customers to create real relationships that impact at a higher level. Look at your cleaning companies in any organization, right? Most people think that's a terrible job, but I think that it's one of the most important jobs within an organization, because think of everything that they do to make sure that you have a space that is presentable, that is clean, that allows you to continue to do what you're good at, without having to continuously take breaks or worry about stenches or, worry about something that you truly have no talent at. These people have major power. And if they were to just disappear overnight, a lot of people would be really screwed. And Stan Lee looked at himself in a similar sort of way. He saw himself just as a comic book writer. He saw himself as a nobody, right? And he's asking himself, what am I really contributing to other people? He's comparing himself to people who build bridges and go into the medical careers. He's comparing himself to people who build things that are seen and used every day, who are saving lives, and these are all extremely important fields. But he got over his limiting belief by looking at, well, how else can I look at what I do? And he realized that comic books is a part of entertainment, right? And so he's connecting what are the different things within it, right? And what is valuable about entertainment? Well, entertainment provides an escape for many people. It is something that takes us away from the challenges we're currently living in. And when entertainment is done really well, it gives us models and it gives us hope that something good can come out of everything bad that's going on in our lives. And he realized the power that lies within that. And he fully put himself into it, and he completely changed comics in every sense of the of the industry, from his early days, changing it in the from being something that was an idealized person to true people. He changed it in using it in the military. He changed it from being hokey fan films into a powerhouse of industry within the movie industry. These are all things that he helped to contribute with the comic world, and that's the power of reimagining what it is you do by looking at it and seeing what is the actual value in what I do. What are the strengths that I have that can really help other people? What kind of purpose can I contribute towards by doing what it is I do? These kinds of things can have amazing impact. And so, I'm about to get into our coaching questions for the day. And if you've never listened to this episode or to any of these episodes before, it is 15 minutes of self-reflection on the questions that I'm about to ask based on the words of Stanley. I invite you to stay through the 15 minutes and really think on these, because I want you to have a revelation like Stanley had. I want you to find your purpose. I want you to find what your strengths are, what your value is. I want you to overcome your limiting beliefs. And that's only going to happen if you really take some time purposefully today and really look towards answering some of these questions I'm going to ask. And I ask that you stay to the end of this episode because I have one more surprise for you guys at the very end of this episode in memory of Stanley. And so, our coaching questions for today. What are you embarrassed about in your life that you're currently doing? Are you embarrassed about it because you're comparing it to someone else's strengths? How can you reimagine what it is you're embarrassed about? What strengths do you have? What value can you add to others? What purpose do you want to use your strengths and your value towards? What beliefs do you currently have that are preventing you from chasing that purpose? If you look at what it is that you're embarrassed about in your life and you overcame it so that you could pursue the purpose that you see in your life, what would that do for you? I challenge you to think about what would be the first step you could take in order to overcome any limiting belief you have, to overcome any embarrassments you have, to overcome any doubts you have, so that you can begin today to chase your purpose like Stanley did. What is that first step going to be for you? welcome back, and congratulations, you are one step closer to becoming who you were meant to be. I'm excited to hear about the fantastic takeaways you got from this very special episode about Stanley. I'd love to hear from you, so go over to www.emergeleadership.club right now and click on the tab to see how to contact us, as well as see our other amazing services. While you're there, if you would like to emerge into who you were meant to be even faster, then you'll want to officially join our family by clicking on the Become a Patron button, where you can gain access to exclusive member-only content that is absolutely amazing, including access to supporter-only podcasts like today's episode, Q&A sessions directly with me, and the ability to get shout-outs on future episodes, all while also helping to support some amazing causes which are actively working towards improving the future for generations to come. Just to make sure you got it, to join our family and get access to this exclusive member-only content and help some amazing causes at the same time, go over to www.emergeleadership.club and click on the Become a Patron button right now. I'm your host, Cody Dakota, and I'm honored to have spent this time with you today. My final message for you today, and listen closely, because it's a little bit longer than what I normally say. It's time. Wake up your potential. Let go of your fears and anxieties, and let's discover what is possible. Emerge and become who you are meant to be. And in the words of Stan Lee, Excelsior. For those of you who don't know what that means ever upward. Here's to you, Stan.